My name is Mike Richter, and I'm here to bring to you the 4 sneaky things in real estate which make you rich in your sleep. Now, to get started, I want to make sure that it's very clear that I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a guy that's had a reasonable amount of success in real estate, looking to pay it forward and share with you how you can get rich in your sleep through real estate. Let's get started. So, the overview. We're going to talk about how you can get cash in your pocket every month, ride the easy way into more net worth, happens on a regular monthly basis, and you get rich by having other people pay your bills. That's kind of a nice thing, right? You don't worry about paying your own bills, you get money from other people and you take that and you pay your bills. And then you can go ahead and also claim tax advantages. So you take your money back from the IRS legally. So first off, we'll start with cash in your pocket every month. This is something we call cash flow. So it's a really easy 3-step system. Step 1, collect the rent. If you're a renter, you're familiar with, hey, every month on the 1st of the month, the 1st of the 5th, I need to pay my rent. And that's the agreement that you make with the landlord in exchange for the use of their place, whether it's an apartment or a house or a condo or whatnot. Now, we're on the other side of the coin when we own property. We are collecting rent, either ourselves or through a property manager. Then you pay off your bills with the rent. And your bills could be your mortgage, your property manager, your taxes, your repairs and maintenance, and to hold back a little bit of money for reserves. Because sometimes there's big ticket items that need to be taken care of, and it's nice to not have to worry about, oh man, where am I going to get the money for this? Because we've already saved up for a couple of months to cover it. And the third step is just a profit, right? So we've got an example over here on the right. So I've got a house that the income on it is $1,000 a month. Pretty decent for what I paid for it. And the expenses are about $700 a month. So the leftovers are the income minus the expenses, which is $300 of cash flow. So every month, after collecting the rent and paying all the bills I need to pay for the month, I get to keep $300 in my pocket. And that already accounts for having some extra stuff put aside for if something big happens with the house. So once again, that's called cash flow. It's important to know that you can possibly have negative cash flow if you didn't really do a great job of buying a property at a low enough price to profit on your rent every month. Also, sometimes you might have a repair issue that's big enough to wipe out your positive cash flow. Like for an example, maybe a water heater breaks and you need to get a replacement for it. Well, in that month, you might have a negative cash flow. But for the rest of the year, month over month, you could have positive cash flow. And that's ideally what you would have every month. So now, next, let's talk about riding the easy way to net worth. So we call it appreciation, right? An appreciating asset is something that holds value that typically goes up in value over time. So a good example of that is a house, right? On average, in the United States, houses have tended to appreciate by about 3% every month on average. Absolutely, there's different parts of the country that have faster or slower appreciation, but that's just the average to give you an idea of roughly what's going on. Now, appreciating assets are the kind of things that we really want to have and to collect over time. Whereas depreciating assets, things like cars, they take money from us. They take our net worth because as soon as we drive the car off the lot, we can't sell it for what we bought it for. And that's not a great way to get rich because you end up losing money on the front end and you end up losing more money over time. The cool thing about a car though is, hey, you do need it to get from point A to point B if you're living in a place that's pretty spread out. Now, the idea with appreciation is we want to buy houses that are likely to go up in value. So you want fairly nice houses. You don't want mansions or anything like that because then you won't be able to get rent to cover your expenses. But you also don't want to get a bunch of houses in the ghetto. Though there are some people that have done that and have acquired a good deal of success with that, I wouldn't recommend it for somebody that's starting out, just because you're more likely to have maintenance issues, you're more likely to have trouble with tenants and tenant turnover and people breaking things. And that's just not a good way to maintain profitability over time. Now, the trick with writing this easy way to net worth is you have to maintain possession of the property, which means you need to pay your mortgage so that the bank doesn't take the property, and you also need to pay your tax bills. Now, the cool thing about having a mortgage, if you decide to place insurance and taxes into escrow where they collect a little bit every month so that they can pay the bigger expenses over the year, you don't have to worry about paying your taxes. The reason why is because the bank or the mortgage servicing company takes a little bit every month. That way, at the end of the year, when property taxes are due, the bank just writes a check on your behalf to cover the property taxes because they've collected the property taxes from you over that year. And another cool thing about appreciation is we know that things get more expensive over time in general due to inflation, right? So the value of property and rents also go up. And one of the coolest things about appreciation is as the value of your property goes up, the actual payments that you pay on your loan, the principal and the interest, do not go up if you have a fixed rate mortgage. So over time, the value of that loan goes down even though the value of your house goes up, which is awesome. And that's one of the best things about real estate. Now the cool thing is you don't have to invest specifically for appreciation, though in certain markets that's the best way to go about doing things. But if you're investing for cash flow, like I typically do, appreciation is a nice extra benefit that you get along the way. So moving away from appreciation, let's talk about getting rich while other people pay your bills. So what I'm talking about here specifically is as you pay your mortgage over time, the value of your mortgage, the value of your loan goes down because you're paying a little bit on it every single month. Now, whether you have a 30-year loan or a 15-year loan, the amount that you're paying on the loan changes over time. Now, let me give you an example of what this looks like. On that $1,000 a month house that I was talking about earlier, every month that I pay the mortgage on it, I get to keep $80 basically. It pays down the loan $80, so I'm being charged interest on less money over time. Another note that's interesting is if you don't have a better place for your money to go for whatever reason, and you think that you don't really need to touch that money for a while, a good place to get guaranteed returns over time is to pay down the mortgage on a house. So in the example of that $1,000 a month house, if I have an interest rate of 4.375%, which that's what it is, every bit of money that I put in is going to give me 4.375% in value every year because I'm being charged less interest because the loan amount has gone down. Now the cool thing about this is other people are paying you rent and you're using that rent money to pay the bill anyway. So that extra $80 a month on top of $300 of cash flow every month is going into my net worth, which helps me to get wealthier faster. And you take that and you multiply it by a few houses, you can see the power of real estate in all of these different ways. So let's move on to the last thing we're going to cover today. And we're going to talk about taking your tax money back legally. So we talk about tax advantage in real estate. Now, it's important to make a distinction here. If you're going to buy a house, repair it, and flip it in the same year, the same 12-month period of time, that profit that you make on the flip is going to be considered ordinary income. So you get fewer tax advantages on it, but it's still better than 100% ordinary income. There's a lot of things that you can control for on your flips. Now, on this side, we've got buy and hold investing, which is what I typically do. I like to buy a house that I'm comfortable with having for 30 years. There might be a circumstance that it would be useful for me to sell it before the 30 years, but I want to be able to be comfortable with my purchase on day one and stay comfortable with it for a long period of time. That way I can always have the advantage of what's called long-term capital gains. So if I hold a property for more than a year and I sell it, that gain to me is taxed at a lower rate. It's 15% in my tax bracket rather than what I'd be charged in ordinary income tax. So that's one advantage. Another awesome advantage to taxes in real estate is that after you account for your income and your expenses, you can go ahead and subtract things like your property management fees, your advertising to get people into the house or the apartment, and all the property taxes and the insurance. Basically everything that it costs to actually run the property can be deducted from the income as expenses legally. And then you can apply depreciation. Now, depreciation is something that the IRS allows for because they know that when houses are being used as rental properties, tenants tend to be kind of rough with them compared to a homeowner. And because we're providing a service to the community by renting out properties at market rates and making sure that housing is available, we get that kickback in the form of depreciation. But bottom line is, real estate is a very tax advantaged way to make and keep money. Not only are the rents, the income that you get by rent, charged at a lower tax rate, there are a lot of ways of changing how much you're taxed and how to defer it to a longer, later period of time. Now, the coolest thing about depreciation for tax purposes is that it's possible that you can be making positive cash flow every single month and still, because of depreciation and the amount of value you're taking as a loss every year, it's possible to have a loss on paper but still have gains month over month. And those losses that you have on paper count against your ordinary income. Once again, you're going to want to talk to your tax people to really get the details on how to make it work. And I would recommend you go seek competent legal and accounting advice before you plan out a sale or purchase of property. So we covered quite a bit today. We talked about cash flow, which is the money that you keep after you pay your bills when you collect the rent. We talked about appreciation, about how every year, typically value of real estate tends to go up. We also talked about how every month you pay the mortgage, that's more money in your pocket because you build something called equity. And finally, we talked about the various tax advantages associated with real estate, like how you're taxed at a lower rate typically, and how you can claim depreciation to still be making money month over month, but on paper be losing money legally, because that's the rules of the tax guidance the IRS has put forth for us. So now I'm going to ask you to do one thing for me. Could you do me a favor and like and subscribe for more videos? And I hope you have a fantastic day.